Here's part 2 of my interview with Dylan Mars Greenberg. For part 1, see part 1.
Mm-hmm.
It's really incredible. It's really, really incredible what they did.
Cool. So back to your own filmmaking work. So you're under 30 and you have many feature films, and that is like super impressive.
Thank you.
You will have like a ton more. And I know, let's see. So what were your like first influences that made you want to become a filmmaker when you first started out?
Okay, well, it's weird because I would divide that into almost two sections. When I was a teenage, when I was like really little, I mean, I had always really wanted to make movies. I think just since I had seen a movie, I was just like, I want to make that. And I think it was like, I never really liked toys. As a kid, it was like, I felt like I couldn't produce something tangible enough. I like stuffed animals. I love stuffed, I love stuffed animals, but I was never like a big fan of like action figures and it's funny because my parents got me action figures and I didn't really like them. And then my parents got me Barbies because they were like, all right, well, maybe like you're gay. And so they got me Barbies and I was just like, I don't like get what I'm supposed to do with them.
Mm-hmm.
And I just like, my mom won a VHS camera in a raffle, a teacher's raffle. And immediately I was drawn to it. And I loved it so much that I think I broke it. I just because I wouldn't put it down. So I would run around with it. I would take it with me everywhere. If we were going on a family trip, I'd take the VHS camera with me. So eventually, I just like, I loved it to death. I think I dropped it because it was just like, it was my favorite thing in the entire world. And so then I ended up, I think after I was done being grounded for breaking the family VHS camera, I discovered that my dad's like little digital camera had a video function. And then somehow I figured out how to import the videos into my dad's computer. And I found that there was like a very basic editing system on my dad's computer called Windows Movie Maker. And I started making films with that. And then slowly that became editing. And my dad actually stole Final Cut Pro for me from, I'm not going to say which, but from one of the offices he previously worked at. He stole an installation disc for me. So I actually got Final Cut Pro, and I started editing with Final Cut Pro, which I still use now, when I was 12 or 13. And there was a point where I think I became frustrated with, I was able to, make these little shorts, but I wasn't necessarily feeling like they had much substance, and I didn't feel like I was adopting the DIY quality that I wanted, where I wanted to be able to kind of engage in some sort of escapism or create my own worlds, and I felt very limited, and I actually kind of stopped making movies for a while, and I got very depressed. I did start making music at that point, and there was kind of a period where I was like, I don't really want to make movies anymore, maybe I should just do music. And then actually what changed was Reverend Jen, who we both know.
And we both know. My former fiance and your godmother.
Yeah. And, all right, hold on. Hey, hon, is there a... Oh, here, sorry. I'm just going to get my phone charger. Just my phone charger. And there's another one there. I think there's two. But if you need one, there's one here. No problem. Okay, and, sorry about that.
That's okay.
All right. So, I think what was really incredible about Reverend Jen was when I read her book, Elf Girl. I think that it inspired me to look at art and look at creating in a completely different way. And I think it was the first time where I allowed myself to not have any rules.
Mm-hmm.
And that enabled me to reach a sort of creative fulfillment where I was able to sustain it, because for the first time in my life, instead of making instead of making 3-minute movies, I was making 20-minute movies because I was allowing shots to go on for as long as I wanted instead of what I saw in another movie, or I was told. And I would take these weekend film classes, and they would say, well, you can only, have a shot go on for this long. You can only have, a shot look like this, and you have to plan it out like this, and you have to do it this way because this is the way it's always been done. And I think when Reverend Jen, when I look at some of the films that she had made, like with Nick Zed and stuff, I realized that's not necessarily how you have to make things, or just anything that she's created. Reverend Jen lives by kind of her own set of rules. She doesn't do things because it's the way that it's supposed to be done, and so that ended up kind of being my creative salvation, so to speak. And I got very into performance art also, and I did a lot of stuff with Jen and you when I was a teenager. And I think incorporating performance art into my films was also very, very vital to kind of finding my creative path. And that ended up leading to me making my first feature when I was 17 years old that was called Glamorous. And then making another feature film, a second feature film that each film was a little... My first film was very surreal and had basically no narrative whatsoever. My second film had some narrative. It was still very loose because I was more so than filmmakers. I was fascinated with video artists such as Ryan Trecarton and Jen herself and Nick Zed and a lot of people from kind of that no-wave sensibility. So that's the film that you were in. I think that's the first, at least the first released film that you acted in that I directed was Wakers. That kind of set me on the path to sort of learning to kind of keeping my own DIY aesthetic and making sure that I was still engaged in the subject matter, but also being able to weave a more cohesive narrative out of that. And I think a real turning point was my film Dark Prism, that was I decided to tell a film as 3 books, so to speak. So each story has their own plot, but then all of the plots actually join together, and it becomes a complete cyclical circle, where kind of it's like it all connects at the end. Even though they take place in different time periods and sort of different dimensions and different states of being, it all becomes one. And and that I think allowed me to sort of start pursuing a narrative style that worked for me. And that film ended up getting covered by Vice and Pitchfork and Flavor Wire and Consequence of Sound and AV Club and a lot of really big publications. And so that was kind of my first time getting, really legitimate press for something I was doing. And so that marked a real turning point where I realized, okay, maybe, I'm doing something for real here, But yeah, I would say that Reverend Jen and, the art stars and you were all very integral to, my formation as an artist. That period of my life when I was a teenager spent with the art stars was very significant to me and very significant to what I do now.
Oh, cool. I do miss those Lower East Side art star days.
Yes.
I really loved getting to act in your Filmmakers. I have fond memories of shooting with you that day with my death scene. And I'll say, I think I've been in a few death scenes in film and stuff in my life. And that one takes the cake for most fake blood poured on me all at once.
So much.
I think it was from a bucket, and it was just one like giant splash.
It was just one. I just poured it on you. I think I was standing on the toilet.
Yes, I was standing in your shower, and you just dumped it.
Yeah, I dumped it all over you.
Yeah, that was really fun. So just a couple more questions.
Maybe we could talk about werewolf bitches more.
Oh yeah. So
because that's an interesting thing. Because even though, so what's funny is that I made my first feature at 17 that was glamorous. However, I had been on and off shooting stuff for Jen for Werewolf Bitches before that, and I acted in Werewolf Bitches. My first scene was, I think, shot when I was like 16 years old, and you were in it, and you know, it went through a few different directors, but it ended up, by the end of it, it was basically directed by me and Jen. So I became the co-director. And what's interesting is that it actually didn't come out until I had released 4 feature films. So that kind of became my 5th or 4th and a half feature film. I mean, I consider that, you know, I really do consider that one of my own projects just as much as Jen's, and I really am proud of that. But, and I think you were great in it, but, sorry, I kind of went on a tangent there.
That's okay.
It was such an interesting project because it took so many years to get done, and I had progressed so much as a filmmaker from when I started it to when it was completed. And it's interesting. I mean, it's shot in all these different cameras, and I actually think it has a very fun quality to it. That's really DIY and cool, but also actually pretty accessible to watch, and very funny, and a great kind of time capsule of the Lower East Side.
It is. I just have, again, so many great memories of that. This is a film for all of you out there who should go watch it.
Troma now.
It took three years to shoot and make. It took it was like 3 like different like periods of directors. I think it took 3 years. Basically, it went from like the end of my like drinking to like me being a year sober. So that's really fun to see all the different states that I'm in it. So it's just a cool time capsule, like between, I don't know, like 2014, like 2013 and through like 2016.
Yeah.
And, but we did a lot of shooting during the summer in like Tompkins Square Park. And just like finding extras, because it was a lot of like, we needed people to run around and like be scared of the werewolves. So we would just go up to people just hanging out on these summer days being like, hey, want to be in a movie? And they would just like get killed and run around screaming. It was so much fun. It was
fucking great. It was such fun. I really want to make another movie kind of like that. Like, I want to try and return to my roots and make something more DIY and more loose like that again. And I think I'm going to be taking this year, the rest of 2020. I mean, well, there's the quarantine, but maybe even the next starting, you know, from around now, a year from now, to just kind of make things that are maybe a little more short form and a little more loose for the most part, because I'm very interested in. That's always kind of been the thing that drives me, and I think I need to get in touch with that, because my new movie, Spirit Riser, there's still a very DIY sensibility to it, but it's like a $10,000 movie, which isn't that much, you know, all things considered. But for me, that's the biggest budget I've ever had to work with. And I had investors, and, you know, I had a casting, and we shot it both in LA and New York, and, you know, it was a much more professional project, and I'm working with a label right now that's partially funding the film, a music label, on the sound mix. So it's very much a bigger production. So I really want to try and do something where it's just like no budget, no one's, you know, waiting on anything, just making something for the sake of just having a great time and making something really fun.
Well, I want to be in that.
I'd love that too. If you want to come down from Philly that would be so fun.
Yeah, I would love that. So 2 more things. So for young filmmakers and artists who are out there who who have like lots of ideas and are just starting out, do you have like a piece of advice for them?
I would say I see a lot of young kids and they're in film school, or they're trying to pursue film, but they're being told, well, you have to get a huge budget to do it. A small budget is like $50,000 or something like that, and that's not really true. You can make a movie for nothing. My first few movies, I didn't have any money, and I still I was lucky enough to I had a camera and I had a computer to edit it, and I had some great friends who were willing to act in it, and that's really all you need. What's great is that now, everyone has a smartphone. You can make and edit an entire movie on your phone. There's editing system apps you can get, and you can actually make the entire film, start to finish. You can make a feature film entirely on your cell phone. Steven Soderbergh shot one of his movies entirely on an iPhone. It's very, you can really, there's a lot you can do with very little, and more so than ever. I think that you shouldn't wait, and you shouldn't wait for it to be perfect, because it's never going to come out exactly how you want. It's a process, and I think that it's probably going to evolve from the start to the finish. It's not going to be exactly what you envisioned, but that's okay, because with each project, you're going to get better at what you do. But it's a matter of starting it and honing that craft, instead of waiting for all of the circumstances to be just right and to be perfect.
Cool. So everyone out there, get out your phones. You're home not doing anything. Start making a movie, whatever's around.
I'm making a movie right now with my partner, who I'm lucky enough is a drag performer, so they can transform themselves into many different characters. And we're making a film kind of in the style of Kenneth Anger. That's, for the most part, just us, just in our house. And we're both playing different characters. They're an incredible makeup artist. They're also able to transform me into different characters. And, we're just making it, for the sake of, the independent spirit and just creating art,
That sounds like a really fun and productive way to be spending quarantine. So,
yeah, I'm also doing a lot of music videos for people and stuff, but that's a big thing I'm doing, and I'm very excited. I'm also experimenting with 3D stuff, like old school 3D.
Wow. Looking forward to seeing all of this stuff.
Thank you.
So for everyone who doesn't know, Miss Subways is a contest that happens every year, where people compete for the title of Miss Subways. It's a thing that used to exist like way back in the day.
Yeah, it's
brought back. So, with your title of Miss Subways, or your shared title, did you get to like go to any transportation events, or like cut any ribbons, or do anything with that?
Well, no, but what was better than that was that I had the privilege of being part of a protest to end police discrimination against people jumping the turnstile, and I was honored just to be there, just as another protester, and to in some small way to contribute to that. And I've raised some money for Swipe It Forward, and I think that everyone should donate to the Swipe It Forward campaign, which is a GoFundMe to bail out people who and pay their legal fees for people who have been arrested by the police officers for jumping the turnstile, because New York City has always been a sanctuary city for the poor and for immigrants and for people of various races and creeds and religions, and many of those people do not have the money to pay the $275 for a service that frankly fucks up a lot and doesn't get you to work on time all the time, and is if you're getting paid below minimum wage, which many people are, even though there's a law about it. The reality is that many employers can get away with paying their employees under minimum wage. They can threaten them. They can, keep them from reporting it. If you are undocumented, then they can hold that over your head, and you can't report them to anyone. And I think that there should be more accommodations for the MTA to be free. I mean, they run ads. They have other ways of making money, but they continue to charge people, and not only charge people, but I mean, they had cops at every single subway station harassing people, and even following people who didn't jump the turnstile just because they thought that they had. So it's very, it's a very oppressive time, and I feel that as Miss Subways, whatever that means, I feel that it's my responsibility to speak out against that. And so I think that, they should really be encouraged to support anything that is set up to resist that system.
Thank you. Very well said. So thank you so much for being here on Good Night with Scooter Pie. And just one last time for the audience, can you tell us again where people can find your work?
I would say the best place to find my work is on my Instagram, Dylan Mars Greenberg. That's DylanMarsGreenberg. You can also follow my band Theophobia at Theophobia on Instagram. And my films are currently, I have a deal where I sell all 6 of them for $10. You get all 6 for a flat fee of $10, and that comes with subtitle files as well. So if you want to support me and stave off boredom in the quarantine, that's a good way to do it. And you can message me on Instagram if you want my films. You can I have a like page, Dylan Mars Greenberg on Facebook. Keep a lookout for my film Spirit Riser coming soon. It's co-produced by True Groove Productions. And keep an eye out for Shakespeare's Shitstorm. You can go watch Woman from Mars right now on Amazon Prime. And that's the documentary about me. And also my most recent film, Reagitator, is also available on Amazon Prime Video, and you can rent it through Amazon.
Awesome.
Thank you for joining me for this exciting episode of Good Night with Scooter Pie. I hope you have a good night, and see you next time.